Welcome to Sisterhood Sessions.
Join us on the couch every Thursday to talk about love, dating, happiness, and everything in between
From a Gen Z
and a millennial perspective.
We are your intimate sisters, and we're all about entertaining, motivating, and inspiring you.
Now let's get into it.
Hello.
Welcome back to Sisterhood Sessions.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about how life does not end at 30 years old.
Or in other terms, the 30s are the new 20s.
Because I still like to consider myself a teenager at 21 years old. So we're pushing it back a little bit.
We are pushing it back. So I was telling you this, and I remember when I was 18 years old, I was graduating from high school, and you're sitting through all these career classes, and you're talking to counselors and stuff. You're deciding what school you want to go to. You're thinking about what you want to study, and it felt like so much pressure was on you to have your entire life figured out at 18, right? And your parents are pushing you and like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? Strangers are asking you that question and you're like, oh my God, that's a lot to think about, right? But the expectation is that you go to university, you do your 4 years there, you get into a good career, you find a life partner, you buy a home, have the kids, and all of that has to be done by 30, right? Like that's kind of the picture that you have in your mind. I'm 32 and I rent. I work in hospitality and I have a dog and I'm single.
A fur baby.
Oh, fur baby. But when I think back to my 18-year-old self, and when I think back about what she thought 30 would look like, my current reality couldn't be further away from what I expected my life to look at this age.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I remember being scoffed at once by this man, probably in his 40s or 50s, because he was coming through my till back when I used to be a cashier when I was 16. And he was like, oh, where are you going to university? I was like, what are you going to do with your life? I was like, oh, I don't know yet. He's like, you don't know? I knew what I wanted to be since I was 13 years old. And I was like, oh, sorry. But there is that expectation there. And I definitely had the life plan to be married in my mid to late 20s, have my first kid before 30 and my second kid 2 to 3 years to follow. Definitely my plan was to at least have a kid by 30. And now being 21 years old, being friends with a 32-year-old, being around more adults, that just none of us feel like adults, but that seems so crazy to me. I cannot imagine having kids and settling down in the next 10 years. If it happens, it happens. I'm never going to rule that out of the photo. But having that as a set life plan seems so daunting.
And you're welcome for that because I always think about it this way is that my parents' generation, I guess you could call them boomers, they had everything mapped out the way we were taught we should have everything mapped out. But life has changed so much, especially economically, that millennials are rewriting the script for how life should be lived. And we see that in a lot of different ways. One way that millennials are described is as the job hopping generation. And so I think they said something every 2.5 years, a millennial will change their career or at least their job, right? But we're seeing it even in school. People are either changing their majors as they go along a lot of times, or they'll study something, work in that career for a little bit, and then in their 30s they're going, actually, I don't like this, I'm going back to school and I'm starting over. And I think for our parents to like wrap their minds around that concept of like being like starting over in your 30s is so scary to them. Because they're looking at us and they're like you should have it all figured out by now. Another way that's sort of manifesting is that my generation is having kids a lot later or considering not having kids at all.
Yeah.
Because it's so expensive.
Yeah. And well, kind of going back to the point about like going to school later, like the pressure of going to school now, like my grandmother keeps telling me like that I should be getting an education now. But honestly, it's not that important, and it's something I can do later. It's something I can do in my 30s, and that's becoming like way more accepted. But you know, our parents, our grandparents, they have it so ingrained, like you need to go to, you know, university and college or like right after high school, otherwise you're going to be stuck. But we're in such a different time now where you can have a career switch, you can change things up as you go along. Like you don't have to, you know, go to school right away, get your career job, and then just be stuck there. Like there's so much fluidity now in what you do.
100%. 100%. Yeah. We're also not buying homes, right? So when you mention fluidity, like another word that comes to mind for me is freedom. You know, like that freedom that my parents didn't have necessarily, where I can do whatever I want because I'm not tied down to a life partner. Like I'm not married. I don't have a kid. I don't have a home. I don't have a mortgage to pay. I can do whatever I want. And like,
you're not tied down to this one property that you've spent all your money on. And people are having less kids because they can't afford homes either to raise kids in. So like everything just kind of goes hand in hand there. But it gives you so much more freedom. You could easily rent for a year in one city, have your nice apartment, and then leases up, you move to a different city, you move to a different country, who knows? But you can move around, you have so much more room to travel and do to the different things.
We're in this Facebook group actually that we really both love.
You put me onto it.
Oh my God, it's amazing. It's called Girls Love Travel. And it's the best thing ever because it's a community of women online who talk about their travels, oftentimes solo travels. And what I find super inspiring is that there are women on there who are like 40, 50, 60, 70, even into their 80s, who are like just living their lives.
Going on solo backpack trips in their 70s and 80s, which is so crazy. And it makes you really realize that there's still so much life ahead of us. Like I feel like there's also so much pressure that you need to get all your traveling done in your 20s and more specifically your early 20s, because by your mid 20s to your 30s you will be settling down, which is so not the case anymore.
It's so not the case anymore, and thank God for that, honestly. Thank goodness for that, you know? Like, people always say that in your 20s, that's when you have your fun, go out, party a little bit, travel before life gets serious. And it's like, I mean, no.
Does life ever get serious?
I mean, for some, but honestly, like, the fact that I'm 30 and like I'm still enjoying my life so much is something I'm super grateful for. Like, I have so many opportunities and options, and
there's so many routes you can take in this world, so many different pathways you can still go down, so much traveling you can still do. The rule book is being thrown out by millennials. You're welcome. Thank you. You're leading the path. I'm following through it, watching TikToks.
Another thing that we were talking about is, why do millennials look younger now?
There's a few different reasons for this. I don't think you could really Google an answer, but just kind of conclusions you and I have come to is skincare is becoming like way more popular, especially during the pandemic. I got super into skincare, learned so much. You know, my mom taught me things growing up, and of course they're really valuable, but also her being a kid, she wasn't given the best skincare knowledge. She has oily skin, and she was always taught, if you have oily skin, you don't moisturize because your face is already producing those oils. That could not be further from the truth. And sunscreen also is not a big thing. People would just tan out in the sun, use tanning oil, not use sunscreen, and that leads to so much premature aging. And I don't even think that you're aging slower, but we're eliminating the premature aging.
For sure. We're a lot more educated on how to look after ourselves. I think millennials are also super responsible for the health and wellness culture, you know, like getting fit, you know, going to the gym or exercising, going for a run, and then eating really well too, you know.
Avocado toast.
What's wrong with avocado toast? Other than that, it costs $25.
It was just funny. I had to throw it in there.
You had to throw it in
I had
there.
to throw it in
I
there.
appreciate it. I can laugh at that. But yeah, I think there's this huge emphasis on actually doing things to look after ourselves better, right?
Also, we're smoking less. I'm not smoking at all. But overall, people are smoking less.
Yeah.
I mean, vaping is something we'll discover the effects of in another like 10 years or so.
Yeah.
But less tobacco, less cigarettes, because that leads to a lot of premature aging.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely the millennials are the leader of the health and wellness kind of community and the popularization of that.
Yeah.
Because these workout routines only would go so far.
But also like fashion trends, I feel like. Because I was Googling photos. I love doing this, like Googling photos of people who are like in their 20s or 30s, but like in
50 years ago.
50 years ago. Oh my, like, why do they look so old?
For their age. It's crazy.
It's super weird. And like, I don't like, have you ever heard of the Golden Girls?
Heard of it.
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, well, you guys, not her, but I feel like they were supposed to be in like their late 30s, early 40s, but they look 60. And I think it had to do with haircuts were a massive thing.
And fashion.
Haircuts and fashion, where it was like women would cut their hair like super short or like get it permed or whatever, do their makeup a certain way, suddenly dress a certain way after they'd had their children, and it made them look way older.
Makes a difference. Even just you recently, you chopped your hair off, and it makes you just look more your age.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed that right away. Like, yeah, people are much more inclined to believe that I am in my 30s now that my hair's short, right? Which I don't mind, frankly. Like, I don't mind at all. I love being in my 30s. But yeah, it's definitely a thing. Like, as soon as you chop your hair, the way you dress. So I feel like in our 30s, like, we're still looking to dress and look like how we feel on the inside. And so we're more interested in, you know, following fashion trends and, you know, dressing a certain way. And I think this like also this like body positive kind of attitude that exists now, thanks to millennials again, where it's like, you know what, wear whatever you want, dress however you want. You don't have to, you know, cover up now that you're in your 30s. You can still wear a crop top. You can still, you know, like my mother, sorry, Mom, for throwing you under the bus, but she always says, mutton dressed as lamb. And I'm like, but who cares? You know, like, you don't have to dress your age.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something older women and older people definitely follow. They think they have to fit into this box of, now I'm 40, I have to like dress and act like it. Now I'm 50, I have to dress and act like it. Obviously, like there's certain maturity that comes over time, but you can dress however you want for as long as you want. I love seeing like older ladies be in their 70s, 80s, like be in their 70s and 80s, wearing like just super cool, colorful outfits, having like dyed green hair.
Yeah.
I think that's like, it's not common to see, but it's so cool. And I just love the self-expression that just carries throughout your entire life. Because I feel as soon as you put yourself into a box of, oh, I'm this age, I have to dress a certain way, you lose that physical self-expression, which is so cool to see on everyone.
Yeah, I love that too. And I think like all of the stuff that we've just mentioned comes down to like one thing, is that when millennials were kids, the internet became available to the general population. And so suddenly we had so much more access to information, right? We could find out the answer to our questions so much more easily. And social media, you know, has made that even easier now to talk to each other, to connect with each other, to learn about things that people are doing in other parts of the world, health-wise, fashion, like in terms of fashion, and all of those categories that we mentioned. And so we're really lucky, I guess, to have been really the first generation to benefit from this incredible exchange of information internationally from the time we were very young.
Everything is so accessible online from, and it's from everything. Skincare, which I've learned so much about through like TikTok, what's trending in fashion. And yeah, it's changed the game. And honestly, if it wasn't for the internet, we'd probably still be in the same thing. We'd just be, you know, continuing the cycle of learning fashion and how to dress from our parents or peers around us, not what people in Europe are wearing to like now influence us here in North America, vice versa. There's so much more to see and learn from, where it's created this like rapidness of now trends and fashion, which is really, really cool, honestly.
It is really, I love that you mentioned that. I think that's a really cool thought, where you were influenced at the time by your like immediate community, right? Like,
because that's all you had. You'd have who
all
you'd
you
see on
had.
a daily basis, maybe like your little city or little town, but ultimately your family and your close friends. And now we get to learn from people all over the world.
It's super cool. Like, unless you could afford to travel at the time, you know, which also wasn't as big of a thing back then.
No.
It wasn't as common to travel internationally as much.
Well, the demand for it now is insane. We're going to Australia in a couple months, but I was talking to my mom about like flight sizes, and she was telling me that when she was a kid going to like Denmark to visit her family there, the planes were so large that her as like a kid was able to like lie down like kind of under the seats, and there'd be enough room for her to like just like sleep there on the like over 10-hour flight to Denmark. There's not enough room to sleep on your little tiny seat setting up now. But yeah, and that also is just a reflection of the demand for travel. They have to like condense planes so much.
Yep.
Because everyone wants to go see the world. Because of social media, we've been able to really just see what the world has to offer. We're not just limited to Nat Geo magazines to show us the Amazon. Nothing to Nat Geo. Nothing. Like, no. I follow you on Instagram. But now I get to see stuff more rapidly.
Yeah, that's so true. I think at the end of the day, like, a lot of people make fun of millennials. You know?
The millennial pause. So
rude.
It's true.
We're getting it from all sides, right? We've got Gen Z making fun of us for, you know, not being as social media savvy or whatever, or being cringe for certain trends and things. And we're getting it from the boomers as well, who are annoyed that we're not
following in their direct footsteps.
Yeah. You're doing things wrong. No, we're not doing things wrong. We're just
not
doing things.
We're just not doing things your way.
Yeah. It's
You're
just
not
not
doing
your
things
way.
their way.
Right? And there's a lot of things that we're doing differently, and I think one of the most important things that my generation is doing is working on fixing generational traumas. I think what's super common in our generation is, like introspection and examining the way that we were brought up and actually considering whether those things benefit us or not, right? Questioning the status quo and deciding that, there is not one recipe for every human. I think we're going to therapy a lot more and unlearning, negative things that, we've been imprinted with.
Removing the stigma around mental health and around therapy.
Absolutely. That's a massive one. I think we are also a much more inclusive generation who are happy for everyone to get to be themselves, and actually we celebrate that. We celebrate individuality. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud to be a part of this generation. And I think, if you look at, I don't know if you know what generational archetypes are, but essentially it's the idea that there are cycles of 4 generations at a time that repeat throughout the course of history, and millennials fall into the hero category, which makes me very happy because, we really are changing things, and we're championing and forging a new path for generations to follow, who will have a much easier time to, do the things that we had to fight for. And I'm excited to see what Gen Z accomplishes.
Does, following in your footsteps.
I'm really excited to see what you guys do, because you're really cool. Like you're so bright and optimistic, and
I'm really cool and bright and optimistic.
But you're full of passion, and you're full of ideas, and you're full of this like desire to change things. And I'm really excited, to see what your generation accomplishes. It's going to be really fun to follow along.
Yeah, I'm excited to see too where my generation goes and where your generation also continues to go. Once again,
frankly,
you're still so young.
We're still so young, but I'm super excited for our generation to become like the age where we get into like politics and like world leadership,
That'll be interesting.
It'll be super interesting.
Be hopefully a much better time.
Millennial presidents. Oh my God. I can't wait, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, if things don't go way too south before then, only time will tell. But I think that'll be a really cool and powerful time.
Yeah.
To see millennials and then Gen Z as well in office in these positions of power, and just to see what'll come of that, because we're so much more self-aware but aware of our surroundings and what's going on with the world. Like climate change is a big focus, and that big focus of ours that some people have cared about in like other generations, but really our generations are kind of the people really putting a focus on this and really pushing the changes for it. So just in every single category, I'm excited to see what comes.
Likewise. That's going to be an exciting time.
An exciting journey going through.
I guess, to kind of wrap things up, I was scared of turning 30. I sat there before my 30th birthday and I thought about all the things that I was supposed to have done. And I remember, saying out loud, oh, I'm so old now. I'm so old now. I'm about to turn 30. And then I turn 30 and you have almost this expectation where like
you feel different.
Like
I'm a snap of a finger.
That, and this is the biggest secret, is that I don't think you ever feel truly like an adult. And the older I get, the more it dawns on me that I still feel like 20-year-old me. It's just my body that's aging. And maybe I'm, a little bit wiser, and maybe I'm better at making decisions, and maybe I'm better at like planning things out, and I'm, maybe thinking a little more before I speak. I'm less impulsive. But overall, like that inner me is the same, Just my bones are a bit creakier.
I remember hearing that you are as old as it's either you think you are or you feel. Which I think is so true. Like I feel 12.
No, you don't.
No,
Ew.
but I feel like a kid, and I feel like you probably do too. I feel like it never really goes away.
It never really goes away. It's just that life gets in the way, right? All of these things that, we keep going on in circles about this, but all these things you're supposed to do, they get in the way of you feeling youthful, and you're supposed to
Well, having a kid, now suddenly you have to be an adult. You have to be the one that knows everything. Even if you're a 25-year-old parent, a 35-year-old parent, there's still so much you don't know. Makes me realize how much stuff my parents probably made up on the spot.
And they didn't. Oh wait, no, they would have had Google because you're young.
No,
my parents.
No, my parents grew up with brick phone. No, my parents are in their like
yeah,
60s.
but when you were born, like when I was born, the internet wasn't a thing yet. Like I remember, I was maybe 6, maybe 7 or 8, and then I remember getting our first computer, and the dial-up tone. Oh my god!
I don't know what she's referring to, but no, I mean my brother is 7 years older than me.
Yeah.
So 4 years younger than you. So it's kind of around. My parents are kind of probably around the same thing,
Okay,
same
fair.
time as you and your parents.
So, okay, but they would have been able to Google stuff with you.
The very, very early ages of Google.
Can you just, because this is my favorite thing ever, can you just tell people what your first phone was?
I really like to put people in their spot with how old they are by telling them this. My first phone was a gold iPhone 5S. Before that, my first piece of technology was, my first piece of technology was still an MP3 player. I did have one of those.
Okay.
And then I got an iPod Touch 4th generation. And then, my first phone was the iPhone 5S.
That's so insane to me. If I gave you like a Nokia, would you like know how to text?
You have to press each button like 3 or 4 times to get to a number, correct? No, to get to a letter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the swipe up. I remember being in like my early ages of elementary school and seeing like the swipe up Blackberries or the swipe up like other phones. I wanted one so bad. I would just get people's like old flip phones as like play phones. Or I would get lip gloss phones from Claire's.
Oh my god.
Those are actually they were pretty cool.
They're pretty cute. I kind of want one now.
They are actually really adorable. They're like, I had a pink and glittery phone that I'd open up and there's like 9 different like lip gloss shades.
Oh my
because
God.
like to represent all the different buttons.
Cute.
It was actually a cute time. I was also at the very end of like the boombox generation of when things started to really go online. It did have a pink boombox.
Well, what do you mean by boombox? Because I think we have 2 different interpretations of what a boombox is.
What's yours?
The giant stereos.
Okay, but those are from like the 90s, right?
That's when I was growing up.
Okay, and then and like in the 2000s became like the smaller, I think more portable ones. I remember having like a roundish one.
Okay, with like a little cute handle.
Yeah,
and
mine was like pink and silver. And then
but that's a CD player, not a boombox.
Okay, yeah, that was. But I remember it being. Someone called it a boombox, so I always thought I had a boombox.
Oh my god.
And my first CD. Guess what it was? Honestly, it was probably a little bit too much for what I should have gotten at like 7 or 8 years old.
I have no idea.
Avril Lavigne's first 2 albums in a combo pack.
Oh my god.
My first ever CD.
She was my first ever concert.
I went to her concert like last year when she went on the tour because I was like, she raised me. I must go.
So I think my first ever CD was Now 95. Do you know what the Now CD? Oh my God. Okay,
I'm
anyway.
just aging you.
You
any
really
other
are.
millennial watching this.
It had the Backstreet Boys on it. It had Celine Dion.
Oh, it was just like a whole
Mariah
bunch of
Carey.
people.
Yeah,
Oh, like
so-
what was popular at the time.
Yeah, so kind of like your top kind of 20,
Okay, I would have
like
like
Billboard top 20, but like CD version. And it was like the best of that year. But they were all called Now. And then the year.
So I had, I guess, the Disney version of that, where it was, Disney Channel, like, artist hits. So it was like a Selena Gomez song, and then Vanessa Hudgens' Say Okay on, like, a compact album.
So, like, the other funny thing is when you say Disney and I say Disney, it's
They're
like...
two different things.
It's completely different.
I was the Hannah Montana, Was It Every Place, or, like, the Nickelodeon iCarly's Way 101, Victorious Age.
Okay, mine was
a good
Elton
time.
John's The Lion King soundtrack and Phil Collins' The Tarzan soundtrack.
Crazy.
Anyway.
This has become an age contest now.
But here's the thing. Do not be afraid to turn 30 because it's awesome. Every year past 30 just gets better and better and better. And now I'm even excited for 40.
But you're also only saying that because you're 32.
I'm still excited for 40,
Good.
you know? Because if turning 30 felt like so rude. If turning 30 felt so liberating, like where I felt so much more like myself, I felt so much more confident. Go and listen to our confidence episode, by the way. But if I felt so much better about myself after 30, like I can't imagine how good 40 is going to feel and anything else after that. So
Yeah, it's good to see where life takes you.
yeah,
By the time you hit 40 and 50 and so on.
exactly.
Also, being 30s is not midlife anymore. Everyone's always like,
Yeah.
oh, your midlife crisis. That's your like 40s to 50s now.
Yep.
30s is your
You're in your prime.
third life crisis.
You're in your prime.
You're in your prime to your 20s to 30s. I feel like 30s is just, and you're just extending your 20s.
Yeah.
It's just an extension.
We got 2 decades of fun now.
Woo! All the fun. All the fun. All the career
Alrighty.
changes, jobs, moving possible. Just do whatever you want. We get to do that now. We get the luxury. We can't afford a home, but we can go live in Europe for a year or a few years. That's cooler in my opinion. Way cooler. I still want a house though at some point. But we'll see when that ever happens.
One day.
50 years.
Alrighty.
Okay. Thank you for listening.
Thanks for joining us again. And
You were saying and, I was already starting giving
I was wondering what you were doing. I was just gonna say, if you're in your 30s, tell us in the comments what your favorite thing about being in your 30s is, what the best thing about it is.
If you're a millennial, let us know what your favorite millennial joke is. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I want to laugh. So
She wants more content to make fun of me with.
I want more ammo.
Yeah.
To
Great.
hit Sophie with. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Try to do the millennial pose.
Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate your input, so feel free to reach out to us with any feedback, comments, or suggestions for future episodes.
If you would like to support us, please be sure to leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform and subscribe so you never miss us.
See you next week.
Toodles.